We are the robots after all, robots. We are the robots after all.
Hey, welcome back to Robots After All. I'm Andrew.
I'm Tom.
Today's topic's going to be The Witcher, kind of talking about it from the perspective of just watching the newest movie that came out on Netflix.
Nightmare of the Wolf. Nightmare of the Wolf.
Thank you for remembering the title because I did not remember the title of the movie.
I know. I wanted to make sure to get it in there.
But we'll also talk about the game. We'll talk about the live action series. And I actually personally haven't read the books, but I have a friend who's read a lot of the books, and he's kind of commented on some of the differences between the series and the books and whatnot. So it's kind of cool that it's got such a rich kind of background and history, that there's kind of all these different mediums that it's managed to kind of make its way into the mainstream.
Yeah, I remember actually trying to find the books when the live action show came out on Netflix, and they were hard to find. Like, I couldn't. That being said, I didn't really look online. I went to a few bookstores, and they never had the first book in the series.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, well, I'm not going to friggin' buy the number 2. I mean, who am I? Like, Judy Doo? Poo Poo?
I want to skip ahead. I don't know who those people are, but I don't think
I was trying to think of something to rhyme.
Yeah, good job.
No. So The Witcher came out to Netflix, the animated movie, an hour and 23 minutes, perfect time perfect time frame for film. And they do a lot within that time frame that was very well done, well animated. Story was put together well. It's amazing when you have a movie that length that has such a concise and well put together story, and everything just flows. Mm-hmm. And you can do it in under an hour and a half. It's that to me is like a perfect film, where it's like, and where you have like these other epic films that are 2 hours or more, and it's just, they barely get anything done. But this like builds a character from the start to finish.
Yep.
And it's very well executed. And
it sounded like somebody started racing in the background there.
Yeah, that's probably going to happen. So sorry, everybody. We're going to do motorcycles.
Two viewers.
I'm going to start doing donuts. My place is going to fall over.
Yeah, but I do agree that I think the story was very concise. I was in it the entire time I was watching it. There was no moments like when you're watching like an extended version of The Lord of the Rings where you're like, wait, is there a bathroom break coming up? Because I'm pretty sure I'm not going to make it all the way through this movie. Or you're just like, wait, is this the end? No, is this the end? Oh, this must be the end. When it was over, I wanted more. I was like, okay, they come out with a sequel. Like, I would definitely watch a full series of this. I had kind of this immediate reaction of liking it better than the live action series with Henry Cavill, which I also loved. But I do think that particular series, not to jump over there, but it had some moments where it kind of lulled a little bit. And especially on a rewatch, I was kind of just like, I don't need to see this part. I'm just going to skip over this.
Sure.
Whereas I feel like the movie just kind of kept me captivated pretty much the entire time. And the fact that they use Vesemir as the main character, it's almost kind of like what Kevin Smith was trying to do with Masters of the Universe Revelation, where he's like, let's tell it from a different perspective. Let's tell it from a story, tell the story from another really awesome character who's typically a supporting character, but have them be the main character. But it was done well. It was like you said before, they brought the character up from being a child to being, to kind of the coming of age, and kind of seeing his roots to kind of where he goes, and then the story after that. So it was just very, very well thought out, well executed, well animated, well acted. So
yeah, all the actors did an amazing job, and I guess we can go into spoiler territory, since that's probably what this podcast about it will be. Anyway,
like all of our podcasts.
Yeah, we just talk. We don't really bother with trying to hide any.
Don't care about people's feelings.
No, that's why we put it in the title. But Yeah, from the seeing the origin story was really cool, which I guess you could kind of call this, which I was telling you before. It's kind of like an origin story to The Witcher and like how they're made in this kind of weird medieval lab environment where they're using what exactly are they using? Is like monster fluid? Like is it from like fluid from monsters to make them?
I don't think it. I mean, I'm sure it's totally 100% explained in the books because that's how those types of books are. But like I said, I haven't read the books, but it seems to be some combination of ancient magic that only specific older mages actually contain the knowledge of. But they're using. I mean, it seems like it's kind of like partially magic, partially alchemical. So there's some kind of component or chemical or something that's coming from a specific monster that they're able to create this compound that they then infuse in the children or in the boys, I really should say, because it's only boys typically.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played, full disclosure. I mean, I don't know much about the Witcher history, the lore. I've only played a little bit of Wild Hunt, and I know there's 2 games prior to that. So they could easily go into a lot of this as well that I'm not familiar with. Have you played those games at all?
I did not play the first one. I played the third one inside and out. Absolutely loved it.
Okay.
I did not play the first one, and I played the second one before the third one came out. And it was very hard for me. It was one of those games where I was like, "Oh, this looks kind of cool." It's kind of in the theme of game that I enjoy. And the combat was very clunky and kind of difficult, and like it just didn't catch. I just couldn't get into it.
Was 2 on the PS3 or
Well, for me, it would have been Xbox 360 because I never
360?
PS3. But yeah,
So it probably felt a little dated,
yeah.
especially if you played Wild Hunt first. I mean, you're going from like.
Well, I didn't. I played the second one first.
Oh, you did play the second one.
Yeah. I played it before Wild Hunt came out because it was on 360.
Gotcha.
But it was one of those games where I picked it up, I played it, and then I was like, this isn't really for me. Kind of like Dragon Age is another game like that where I picked it up, I tried to play it, couldn't get into it, but I feel like if they came out with another one, it could be like the Wild Hunt version of that where it's like really well done and catches my my interest. But then when Wild Hunt came out, all the cinematics for it looked like really incredible. It was also one of the first really big titles that came out for PS4 when I got a PS4. And I got really hooked into that game. So that's kind of really when I would say I became a fan of The Witcher, which I think is true for a lot of people. It's kind of similar to Fallout 3. I think the third game is kind of the charm when that comes out, that people actually finally get onto it.
3 times the charm. It's like catching up to working out all the kinks and catching up to that next gen level, so you can kind of put a lot more into it. Yeah. But back to the movie. I mean, seeing that kind of how it all kind of came to be, especially from Vesemir, because he was kind of this like poor kid, had like a nice girl that he hung out with who was clearly like a crush or something. They hung out, and then he gets wrapped into this, sees his mentor or soon to be mentor perform like an exorcism type of Witcher style, and he gets into that that lifestyle of training to become a Witcher, and that whole sequence is insane. And up to the point where you have like these little kids that are probably under like around 10 or under. And we both kind of talked a little bit about this off record, but like just when they get put out into the wilderness by themselves, you're like, okay, this is interesting. And then they all just start getting picked off very violently, like one by one. And it was just like, whoa, a big shocker moment, which you mentioned is actually true to that lore of like they mention it in the Wild Hunt.
Yeah, they do. So I want to actually back up a little bit because he didn't just grow up poor. He was a slave. They were slaves.
Right, yeah.
So, and then this guy comes along who is like this kind of gruff mercenary and makes a bunch of money from basically doing mercenary work. And that looks very attractive to him because by comparison to slavery, that's like very kind of, glamorous and exciting and adventurous, and then kind of chases after it. Whereas most people who are not slaves look at the Witchers as second-class citizens, like they consider them to be like kind of a stain on society. And but he kind of looked up to him because of where he was, his position was completely powerless, like living in slavery and having kind of no way out. So it was like his only way out. And I liked how when he made the decision to leave, he asked the kind of childhood romance or romantic interest at the time, would you come away with me, blah, blah, blah. And she's just like, she makes a really good point. She's like, so basically I'm going to serve kind of one master versus, serving another. She just kind of saw it as more bondage servitude. And I think it kind of took away from what was special about their relationship, that they were kind of equally experiencing this kind of suffering together that brought them closer together. So I thought that was kind of like it was a very quick thing, but like a lot of kind of emotional impact or a lot of kind of thought put behind the reasoning. And when he takes off, it's interesting because all the boys that are there are either like, a child of surprise, which basically is a child that's owed to the Witchers based upon a debt needing to be paid.
Right.
Or you know what I mean, like, so they're kind of taken. Nobody wants to be there, and Vesemir is just like,
he's like, oh wait, I'm the only one who volunteered.
He's like at the casino. He's just like, this is great. Like, I can't wait to be a Witcher. Like, you're gonna be great, and you're gonna be great, and we're all gonna be great. And then that night, they just get taken in their sleep out to the bog where all this stuff happens that you're describing. And I feel like that's the first time he really gets to see, like, fuck, maybe the Witchers aren't, the organization that I thought they were, or, and I think a lot of that vision kind of comes from that I can't think of his name, but the gruff kind of like head Witcher at the time, who's basically kind of creating these battle hardened warriors, that if they survive some of their initial trials, they're kind of worthy of getting the mutagen to actually become Witchers. So it's kind of intense. Like, when it kind of happens so quickly, but it's like,
I thought it was an illusion. I thought it was an illusion at first. I was like, wait, is this really happening? Because there was a moment where like the specters show up and they're just like blowing up kids. And then it looks like he had like a flash or something. Like, it seemed like it was illusion, but then they kind of.
Yeah. It was also kind of suspect that there were so many different attacker types. Like, there were so many different monster types where it was like, it could be an illusion where it's just like, hey, you might see one of these in the future. You might see one of those, but just kidding, you're in the danger room.
Yeah.
But no, they actually killed all the kids.
Yeah, it was strange.
And actually, I think the very beginning of the show, like how I knew the show was going to like not pull any punches, is the very first scene. They have like a family traveling along the road, and the wagon that they're all traveling in gets attacked.
Oh, right.
Everybody dies, and all the kids die except for one, I think.
Yeah, and that was like a family, right? And then
the whole family. They all died.
The guy was just like, yeah, monster. They're talking about like, oh, we're fine, we're safe, and then he just gets like gutted and
immediately
like a giant vine goes up through his mouth. Super gory.
And they throw his like lifeless body off to the side. And it's like one of those things where it's like close in the camera, and like the family's still in the background, still kind of facing the threat. So I mean, I knew right away it was like, wow, this show is like not pulling any punches. This is going to be intense.
Oh, yeah. They went full on like gore. Don't care if kids get killed. Don't care who gets killed. Right. We're just going to show it, and you're going to watch it and love it.
And it was just true. It was just true storytelling. Like, I feel like there was no ulterior motive in any of the storytelling. There was no. It just felt very pure. And maybe it's not for everybody, but like, I just felt like it was like, it reminded me of like when we would sit down with like we'd go to like a Saturday matinee or like Strawberries and get like a new anime VHS and be like, I really like the artwork on this. Like, let me check out what this anime is about. And you'd pop it in and just be like blown away by just like how, just like unfettered the experience was. Like, just took you on a journey that you just really weren't expecting. And that this movie harkened back to those kind of older days of just like, there are no limitations. Whatever story we have to tell, we're going to use whatever mechanisms we need to tell it. And it touched on like everything in a way where it was very balanced. Like, it had like good trajectory, good storytelling. There was a really strong emotional pulse throughout it. There was good tension build up. There was like everything was like paced very well. Like it just like hit all the boxes.
Great follow through. I mean, the whole thing kind of just lines up and hit a home run. Lines up and hit a home run, as I always say. But yeah, that first scene is just amazing because they jump right into the action with which Vesemir shows up, and you see like his true abilities and what he's capable of, and like kind of his snarkiness where he makes kind of like cheesy commentary, like just silly dialogue, but it's well done in a way where you're not like, okay, let's calm down a bit. It's like they sneak it in there and he's just kind of like this little snarky smart ass Witcher in a way, who's like, I got where I am because I went through a lot of shit and now I want to, do whatever I want, make money, get in a nice hot tub. But yeah, that just like the animation, these animators in this movie, they're insane. You got to shout them out.
Yeah, super good animation.
Yeah, flawless. And sound and music. Some of the music was cool. I remember one specific track or whatever you call it, where there's like a flute and it almost sounds like a shakuhachi flute, like the samurai monk flute that I have. And it was really cool. It like opens up with this flute and then it kind of goes into this little bit more of a heavy thing. And I think it was when they were meeting that first elf, naked demon elf character with the basilisk.
Mm-hmm.
And that fight ensues. And that was amazing with Tetra, and her magical abilities were, I didn't expect her to be that powerful. And she's just like, so that's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to just see animation in that heavy of a detail, like on screen. It's like, it's like you're saying, it's like getting a new, like when we'd go to stores and get it, and then a new anime and see it for the first time. You're so hyped about how well done the animation and is, and that's always like a big thing for me. It excites me to see like all the little things they do to make the animation perfect looking.
Yeah, and like I think that you don't often realize how much credit is kind of deserved for making action look exciting and potentially, realistic when it's being very unrealistic in an anime. And I think that when it's not done well, you go, okay, or you like roll your eyes or whatever. But like when it's done well, the animators have really done their job. Like you don't question anything. You're just like literally in it the entire time. And I feel like this film did that, where during that fight scene with the basilisk and stuff, like all of the, invisible force energies, or like all of like the smoke and like, or like the avalanche of snow, like all that stuff was just so well animated that, it felt grand. It felt, I don't want to say realistic, because realistic is not the right word, but it felt believable in that world that they've built, that this is exactly what it would look like. This is exactly how it would behave. This is exactly what it would sound like. They just
not a lot of it seems a lot of it is like hand drawn as well. There's not a lot of like 3D. I think a couple times I noticed the basilisks were a 3D model, but yeah, for the most part, it's like really highly detailed, and you feel the impact of a hit or a strike or an attack or whatever you wanted, and all the stuff that's going on. So yeah, it all came together really nice. I guess we can get into like the twist of it, or where do you want to go from there? Because I know that the twist is like the big story arc.
Yeah, we can get into that. Well, there's a couple twists.
There's a couple twists,
but I guess the big one.
Yeah.
The big one is, that the king's advisor, who's, fairly old, turns out to be the romantic interest from when they were kids, but because witchers don't age the same way that, humans do because of the mutation, Vesemir still looks very young, and she's clearly aged. She looks like she's aged probably 30 or more years after him, even though they're the same age. So that was really cool. Yeah, it was very cool. And you know what it was like? there are just like sometimes these moments that are just so well done and so believable, um, and could very easily be heavy-handed or feel like out of place or feel weird, but they just do it right. I love that there was still a romantic spark between them, regardless, because like they technically were still the same age, and like the appearances just didn't matter at all. And it just
Right.
felt very that felt very real to me. Like
Yeah.
that played in a way where it was like, yep, totally buy it, totally believe it. Like he's always loved her, like she's always loved him. Like it's just real, kind of pure romance, and there's no, um, you know, it just like flowed very, very naturally, and it
Yeah,
kind of gave that release or that like satisfaction I think we were looking for as the viewer, to be like, they grew up together, they loved each other, and then they finally kind of have their moment together when they're older.
yeah, that connection is always there, and they never had like any like falling out per se. They just
Right.
kind of like went separate
Went
paths.
their separate ways. Yeah, I mean, she wasn't willing to come with him. He needed to do what he needed to do to get out of being a slave. Um, and then their paths kind of finally crossed. But I thought it was interesting that her character, before they do the big reveal, she's kind of protecting the Witchers. She knows that he went off to be a Witcher. She at least knows that much about him,
Yeah,
and she's still kind of hearkening this affinity toward the Witchers because she knows he's a Witcher. So she's always felt that way, even though the rest of society, especially where in her status of society, the Witchers are considered to be, again, these second-class citizens. Like she doesn't care. She's like trying to get to, she's trying to get to center. She's trying to, be reasonable and kind of take more of a middle path with things rather than kind of the extremes that the world are kind of saying. People either kind of revere Witchers as like being very helpful, or they think that they're kind of scum of the earth and they need to be, like Tetra thinks that they're basically,
yeah, and that leads to the next
pervert.
twist, which is
Yeah.
well, we have Tetra, who's is suspicious of the Witchers, thinks that they're creating these monsters, or not necessarily creating them, but like maybe letting them like spawn or become more multiple, so they can make money off of hunting them.
Right. And she
And
just knows that they're corrupt from her own experience. She's seen the corruption in the organization to know that they're not trustworthy.
yes, so that all becomes, I mean, pretty much true when Vesemir finds out that
That's what's happening.
that's exactly what's happening. He finally goes into the bottom of the basement in the Witcher lodge, I guess you'd call it, or castle.
Karamorn, it's called.
Karamorn?
Yeah.
And that's where they're just breeding monsters, seems like mainly basilisks, but I mean, obviously other stuff's going on. So yeah.
Hey, anybody order a basilisk?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, they find out that Tetra's is justified to, or I forget the word, escapes me, but allows her to kind of be like, oh, let's see, I was right. So let's go.
Yeah.
Vindicated, yeah. And then she goes after them, and that's kind of like the final battle is like she summons all these monsters to like
Which is kind of hilarious that she's essentially using, she's using something corrupt to fight the corruption. So she was kind of an interesting character because she kind of was the villain in the story. I mean, it was one of those things, and it's funny. I think this is a theme in The Witcher in general, where morality is very much blurred. Like any one character you look at, when you kind of turn them sideways, like they look a little bit different.
Everybody has their flaws.
Yeah, there's a lot of things, like even in the game where like, and this isn't really totally a spoiler, but it's like you might come across a mission where it's like you have to make a decision to like save a bunch of orphans, and then like decide to save the orphans because it's the right thing to do, and then because you do that, like this guy's wife dies, and you're like,
I actually remember that exact quest. I did that one.
Yeah, so it's
aren't
like
they like in like they're like it's like almost like a
it's also like a swamp or like a bog.
gingerbread house. What's that old folk tale, fairy tale?
Not a gingerbread house. That's hilarious that you remember it like that, but
Well, it's like a house made out of food. What the hell? Grumble and Dumble, Harry and Hallie, Harry met Sally.
Rumble and Mumble. Are you talking about Hansel and Gretel?
Hansel and Gretel, thank you. It's like a Hansel and Gretel situation in a way.
Like the alternate universe version, like the Bernstein Bears versus Berenstain Bears. Grumble and Grumble is
Grumble and
the
Grumble.
alternate universe version.
Yeah, that's the Mandela effect version. Anyway, that quest, it's kind of like a Hansel and Gretel situation where like the witches are like actually, or the people that took the kids are actually these horrible witches, and they're all in a spell. Anyway,
Crones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, getting back to the point I was trying to make around the whole Rowdy thing is that like Tetra has a point, but she's also corrupt in her own way. The head witcher, does some good, but he also is corrupt in his own way. Vesemir, his motivations were kind of purely selfish, but there's obviously more to him than that. And he's obviously a good person. And you see that obviously much later in his life. But
yeah, because he's obviously not in agreement with what's going on. He's like,
right.
He's
not all about, yeah.
This is all the head guy's name. Deglin, is that his name? I'm looking at the cast. I think Deglin is the head witcher.
Yeah, maybe. I believe you.
So, yeah.
I've been like horrible with names for some reason.
Deglin's like, hey, we got to make some money, honey. Vesemir's like, well, this ain't the way to do it, baby. And they kiss and make up.
Yeah, at the end.
The end. Now, there's a crazy fight scene, a lot of cool fighting moments. They plan all the fight scenes out really well, too, so it's not like overdone. It's not just like a bunch of action. It's like, it does it like this, but boop, boop, boop. But
it's just a horse. It's just a horse going across the screen.
Horse galloping. That's the pattern of the fight scenes. Yeah, they have a big fight scene, and then there's another like mini twist where, so that elf, the naked.
Is there a twist that there's another fight scene?
Twist and shout, you know what I'm saying? And they have like that demon elf, but she can cast illusions. I don't think we mentioned that. Her illusions are her thing, and
illusions, Michael.
So he's trying to save the people that can make witchers, the alchemists, clerics, wizards, what have you, whatever they're called. And I don't know what the deal is with them, if they're like the last of their kind. They're the only ones that are able to do this. They have the recipe in their mind, and the recipe is king to them. I don't know what I was doing. I don't know what I was trying to say.
In fact, I think that particular mage that died was the only one who actually knew how to kind of blend the ancient magic with the alchemical recipe to make the whatever that compound is that makes the witchers.
Okay. Yeah, the little injector, whatever it is. So they're kind of like held hostage. It's like the last moment, crazy fight. All of Vesemir's friends, pretty much all the witchers other than Vesemir are left, and like Deglin, the head witcher, and they're Tetra has them trapped, and then the elf witch like casts an illusion on him, and then it's kind of like, so it plays
dream life kind of thing.
Yeah, they play this trick on us where he finally breaks the illusion, but that wasn't the last illusion. There was still another one, and that's where you're kind of like, that's like the mini twist. So it's like, so Vesemir is like fighting a big fight scene with Tetra, and then he kills her, but it turns out that was actually, what's her face, the old romance best friend, because that was another illusion. But then
the two people that he thought that he was killing that were the enemy turned out to be both the mage and his love interest, which was super tragic. But I knew that the mage had to die, because I know in the story that they can no longer make any more witchers. The witchers that they have are the only witchers that will ever exist, because they don't have the knowledge to make any more. So when you get to the storyline in the Wild Hunt, the witchers are kind of dying out because they're the last of their kind, the ones that are there. And that gets to the last twist of the whole show. And it's funny, I actually called this, not that I'd be able to prove it while I was watching it, but there's a bunch of children that are left. And I'm like, well, since there's only these children, one of these has to be Geralt. And I was like, I bet it's the bald one. It has to be the
Yeah,
bald one.
well, it has to be because he's like, I know how to escape. He's the
It's
only
just
one.
not just that, but he doesn't have like none of them had white hair. So it would be a dead giveaway if they made him have white hair.
Yeah, they didn't
So
want to make it obvious.
that's Geralt. And then
Yeah.
right at the end, Vesemir, who is Geralt's mentor
Yep.
in later games, he's much older in the Wild Hunt. He basically addresses him as Geralt right at the end, and I was just like, wow, beautiful, like so perfect.
Well
like,
done.
yeah,
Less of a twist really than a reveal because I feel like,
yeah, I guess you're right.
but yeah, that was like the last final moment minus like his old friend romance on like he like melts the lake. So
Oh, that was amazing.
nice
Yeah.
warm lake, and they just lay together, kind of watching the lake as she passes away. But
I love too, like when I saw that moment, and you're kind of like, I feel like in that moment you're taking in kind of his whole life with her, and just thinking about all the kind of tragedy that he's kind of experienced, and like, you know, obviously like the good times as well. But most of what you see in the movie is him experiencing a lot of hardship and tragedy. And then you kind of fast forward to him in the Wild Hunt, you know, when he's training Geralt, and like his character, it kind of has that feel like what was the Rogue One, a Star Wars story, right? When you get to like see all of the detail behind that one line in A New Hope, right. Empire Strikes Back. It's like many people died going to get us these plans. And it's like one throwaway line, and they basically like make a movie like, hey, let's show what happens when all those people die to get those plans.
Yeah.
That's what this felt like to me, where it's like there's this whole life behind this character that isn't really developed, at least in the Wild Hunt, which I know is such a small piece of the lore for like kind of what obviously the books cover. But so maybe some of the stuff that was in this movie is also covered somewhere in the book series. But I feel like for a lot of kind of the average person who's into The Witcher at this point in time, they got exposed through the Netflix series or the game or the Wild Hunt specifically. So I feel like this was kind of tailored to that audience more so than maybe people who were hardcore fans of the book. So
right.
Yeah, really, really well done. Was very surprised how well done it was. Like I expected to be like, oh, that was okay, like whatever, but instead it was like just totally blew me away.
Yeah, it blew me away. I love that everything about it, and then I highly recommend it if you have Netflix.
Yeah,
if you haven't seen it, assuming you probably saw it already. If you're watching a spoiler,
if you haven't watched it, then you just heard all about it, and you don't need to watch it anymore. So
yeah, and after I saw that, I was like, I really need to finish that game, and I kind of wanted to go back and rewatch The Witcher with Henry Cavill, and I kind of started the first episode, and I got past like that first monster thing. I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. And
that series was really good. It just like I said, it has a few sections in it that kind of lull a little bit, but for the most part, it's a pretty top-notch show. And Henry Cavill completely nailed Geralt's character. I was really worried because Geralt is not an easy character to portray. Has a very specific kind of feel from the game, once again, which is kind of like the main source material everyone's expecting. You know, I wonder how it is for people who are hardcore fans of the books to kind of see the game and be like, okay, this is now the new standard for Geralt. Like there's kind of like, I mean, even like when the Michael Keaton Batman came out, or like the Batman animated series came out, right? Like now Kevin Conroy is Batman. Like that's the standard for Batman. That's what we expect Batman to sound like. Or like Mark Hamill with the Joker. And I feel like Geralt, you expect him to have that low, gruff voice that Henry Cavill like really nailed, and made it believable.
Yeah, and toss some coin to your Witcher. That was a great song. Everybody loved that. Yeah, great series. I definitely want to rewatch it and revisit the game. Or
definitely play the game. The game is
now sorry, what?
I was just gonna say CD Projekt Red is obviously getting a lot of kind of guff right now because of the whole debacle with Cyberpunk 2077, which, you know, it is what it is. Like, you know, it's unfortunate. I think the bones of that game are very, very good, and it's very, very you can tell that it's really meant to be polished once they kind of work through the bugs. Like it would be a very polished game. But unfortunately, I feel like it's kind of had its chance to shine and just kind of, I think it's just kind of stained from here on out. But when The Witcher, no, I actually didn't. I had been waiting for, originally I was waiting for a next gen console. Then I got the next gen console and I was like, well, now I'll just wait for them to fix all the bugs. And I feel like every single time a new patch comes out, people are like, more bad news for Cyberpunk. So I'm just kind of still waiting for the game to get stabilized to some.
It's like they patch something, and then I read they're like, oh, this patch allows people to exploit X, Y, and Z. You know, it's just like a new patch, and then like they just find a way to like break it again or something. I don't know.
The version that I have it updated to a certain point. I think it's like the third patch that they did. So like the very first day one patch they did, then they did like a patch like a couple weeks later, and then I think I did one more update after that, and it was good. Like it seemed to be very stable where I have it right now. So maybe I should just play it that way. You know, I have friends who have definitely beaten it, and they haven't had any issues with any kind of game breaking bugs. But
My brother,
I mean, you know, what's that?
I was just going to say my brother played it on Stadia, and he said that it played like really well. For some reason, people were saying that playing on Stadia, it ran pretty good.
Yeah, maybe that's the best way to play it. I played it on Xbox Series X, and that I haven't tried it on PS5, but on Xbox Series X, it runs pretty well, from at least with the update that I have. Better than Xbox One X. So I tried it on that, and it looked like it had this weird like film on it. It didn't look like clear. It was really gross looking. And then when I loaded it up on Series X, it was like 60 frames per second, beautiful graphics, you know, really solid frame rate, like no major clipping or glitches. But anyway, so back to the Wild Hunt real quick. So, you know, when they launched the first edition of The Witcher Wild Hunt, you know, it came with this nice slip cover.
He's holding a PS4 copy of The Witcher, and I have an Xbox.
Oh, yeah, the opposing one. And it came with all these goodies. When I first opened this up, I remember being very touched by this kind of personal letter that they included. And you know, it was very much a money where your mouth is kind of situation, because they gave you this letter talking about how much they care about the fans and how much they care about, you know, how passionate they are about the game. And then they gave you stickers to go along with that. They gave you a little mini game guide, because this is a massive game that you can feel very overwhelmed with very quickly. If you load this game up, you're just like, what do I do? Where do I go? How do these systems work? What the hell is this? One of the games like Skyrim, where it's like, do I need these snowberries? What am I going to use these for? Should I grab some of these these clementines? Do I need bread? Is bread good?
Like this, they show like what all the user interface, everything represents, which is kind of nice, because that interface is kind of nuts. Like
once you figure it out, it's like everything else. It's like very simple, and you're like, I wish there was more. But yeah, I agree. It was very overwhelming at first. There's a little compendium, which again is a book. So that's basically 2 books, and then they give you a map, which is pretty sick, and then they give you a soundtrack. So I mean, for a $60 game, you're getting this incredible, you know, probably 60 to 80 hour experience, all these goodies, you know, and a nice like slip cover, which again, not many game companies are doing that. I mean, half the time when you open up a PS4 game, you're lucky to get the full plastic case. You know, never mind actually having like a book or any kind of bonus content. So CD Projekt Red really put a lot of, you know, love and care into this game.
We salute you for your support and wish you a fantastic next generation of RPG gaming. CD Projekt Red. Huh. Siri. Is she actually a Witcher? Is that a spoiler? And if it is, don't tell me. But is she even like actually a Witcher, or does she just have like magic powers?
I don't know.
Guess that's a spoiler. But yeah. Hello. I just held up both CDs and went, whoa!
For those just listening.
Yeah, I found this at Goodwill, everybody. $6.99 for Witcher. They're an original print WB Games warning, read instruction manual for information about. Oh, I'm just kidding.
Don't do that. This is another one of those games like I was talking about in the last episode where I really think that sealed copies of the first edition of this game will be highly collectible in the future. It was the first game that kind of brought Witcher into the mainstream. So games like that are just going to be, it'll take, probably 10 years, 15 years. And then people will go, oh, remember how amazing, Witcher Wild Hunt was? I'd love to hunt down one of those original copies that had the stickers and the soundtrack and the map and the letter from CD Projekt Red back when we still liked them. Or maybe, in today's kind of modern climate, once you betray your fan base with something like Cyberpunk, that's it. You're kind of dead to the community and no one will ever speak of Witcher again. Who knows?
Yeah, it's a sad story because I'm sure they really did put a lot of time into that game, trying to make that game.
I honestly think that I look at this very differently.
They're kind of like
not to. Oh, good.
I was going to say it's kind of like a historical moment in gaming. It's like it really brought to light a lot of like what the game industry, like those companies, go through.
Yes.
And now it's like delay everything, delay it all.
Yeah. I mean, so I am, in my day job, I'm in a business consulting world, and it's interesting for kind of me to look at it from the outside, versus kind of a basic consumer, like knowing full well that the people who are actually, the chairman of the board, or like, the people who are actually providing the capital to fund these projects, they're going to force decisions. They're going to force timelines on things that, the artists and the people who are passionate, the people who are writing these letters that are going and getting included in these games, there's two opposing kind of forces in that world, especially once you make a bunch of money. So Witcher Wild Hunt did really well. The company grew. They were able to hire more heads. They probably got more capital infused into the company. They probably got more stakeholders to appease with that, capital infusion. And now you have to deal with, challenges that previously you might have been you would have had the ability to be very agile with, but now you're beholden to your stakeholders that, want to see results and bottom lines by a certain time. Like when they put the money in, they're saying, okay, by this date, my money needs to be X percentage increased, or, we're going to have a problem. And it could be contractual in some cases. And they may have weighed the pros and cons of reaching a contract and knowing full well they were going to get backlash in the community. They were going to get lawsuits. And they were like, you know what? Lawsuits are going to be cheaper than, the breach of contract. The backlash in the community is what it is. We'll try to fix it in post and just get bug fixes and hot fixes and patches out as fast as we possibly can. And they had to make the decision, because they kind of got too big for what they were trying to do. I think that there's a business mismanagement aspect to this, which it's just tough to really kind of point a finger at any one particular. So it's like, do you get mad at the company because they took on, more employees and tried to make more jobs? And, do you get mad at the company because they tried to infuse more capital into it to grow it and, try to build a better product? Like, they don't really strike me as the kind of company who was trying to get greedy per se. Like an EA where they're like, you know what? Cyberpunk 2077, microtransactions up the ass so that you can have different color hair. And, if you want the more than two genital choices, you're going to have to buy the genital variety pack. They didn't go that route where like they, tried to
variety pack. That's what I want in every game.
They didn't go that route. There wasn't like the kind of evil game industry stamp on it that we, usually can smell from a mile away. So I do think that there was a bit of it was a combination of people really being emotionally upset by being so hyped about something and have it be so disappointed. And I was very disappointed as well. But I do think like these things are not really looked at through a lens of all of the kind of interested parties or kind of perspectives that are really at play.
Well, I think especially since that game, like when was that announced? Like 8 years ago or something? It's been in production for a while. So,
I think it was 6 years at this point. I want to say it was 6 years at this point, but yeah, it was a while.
Yeah, I mean it was a long time. So I mean they're getting kind of like pressure from everybody that like wants to make money from it, you know? So it's like, yeah.
Yeah. But
And now everybody's like sympathetic and kind of like delay games if you want, just make them good.
I think we've been saying that all along. You know, well, maybe not, but I do feel like when Halo got delayed, I wasn't mad about it. It's like that's fine. And nowadays too, we have so many games to play. We're so backed up on games,
I know.
and you can find yourself playing something like Destiny 2, for instance, that you've already played to death, and you're replaying it again.
Yes. Yes. Well, Game Pass is that's like the worst offense about Game Pass is just like
You have Game Pass?
yeah, I have Game Pass, everybody. It's totally worth it. It's the Netflix of gaming. Everybody should have it. It's got a lot of games, indie games, AAA games. Halo's coming to it. Psychonauts 2 just came to it. 12 minutes came to it.
This is not a sponsored video, by the way. Game Pass is not sponsoring this video.
You might not know about that, but I'm getting some insight.
You're getting some
Getting some Game Pass points, if you know what I mean.
They pay you in free games.
But no, they just came out. Psychonauts 2 came out. I haven't even tried it yet. Yeah. Anyway, Game Pass.
Cool.
Go get it.
You need to go play Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. That's definitely on your bucket list now because it is a must-play game.
Re-download it because I had to delete it. But I still have the saves. So
nowadays you have to upload it with the disc, then you got to download it with the update, and then you got to delete it.
Delete it.
Start over again because you realize the patch ruined the game, so you got to reinstall it without
the system.
Yeah.
Send it back to Xbox. Write them a note.
Turn the Xbox upside down. That's how you unlock the secret levels.
Yeah, when you get it back, you have to turn it upside down for at least 2 days. You have to also angle it after that. A lot of people don't know about this, but when you angle it, that filters out all the bad bugs. They just go right out the bottom.
Yeah, you won't have any clipping or no kind of weird floating artifacts or yeah. So and I think you get an extra silver sword that way as well, which is pretty cool because you need the silver.
That's right. But that's only if you remember each step exactly.
Right, you have to do it in order.
Silver sword in Halo of all games. Would you get a sword in Halo? Are you kidding me? This is
pretty crazy. I didn't realize we were talking about Halo. I thought we were talking about Witcher 3.
No, silver sword in Halo, my friend.
Okay, not an energy sword.
No. We're going back to the original Halo, like the crowns. The crown.
When they were all wearing knights outfits.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how you do it, everybody. Yeah. So.
Very cool. Well, I think this wraps this episode.
That's been Robots After All, everybody. Thanks for watching. Huh?
Did you want to meander on about some other topic for the last 30 seconds or so? To just not really end the episode?
I've been doing P90 again. Power 90, the original. You know that originally came out on VHS, Power 90?
I think.
And then
P90.
It was the weird phase where VHS and DVD was starting to come in slowly, but VHS was kind of
right,
still trying to put it together. And
talk about the fact that you keep calling it Power 90 as if to say World Wide Web instead of WWW.
Power 90, baby, P90.
Yeah, P90. There you go.
So Power 90. I mean, that's what the P
power is implied. You don't have to say the power part.
The P on the DVD stands for power. Yeah,
I feel we need to splice in that. You need to splice in that scene with Shake saying, "Hey, guess what the D's for?" From Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
But the reason I bring up VHS, and this is the last thing I'll say, is that it's.
Wait, do you promise?
The format is the tube TV ratio, and on the DVD, so it's just very dated looking. But it worked for me. I'm trying again. And we're gonna do it. People stay strong.
Hard workout.
It can be
hard workout. Yeah.
I
remember testing
at first with the original one, not P90X, which is the crazy one.
That's the one that I have. Yeah.
Yeah, that one is insane. But the original one, they start you off kind of slow.
Oh, I didn't realize there was. So I didn't realize there was an X versus. I just figured back then they just threw a bunch of stuff together.
Yeah, X came out says 2007. I have one of the.
But you lied to me. You told me it was a VHS. That's a DVD, you liar.
I don't have a VHS. I'm saying that they on the DVD they promote the VHS version as well.
I had this vision in my head
Check
that
this
you were
out.
putting it into an old VHS player, and you had like the headband on, like the neon headband with the wristbands, the
Ooh,
spandex.
that'd be cool.
Yeah, but
I
instead,
missed the Wii Balance board. I used to love that, but I found these at Goodwill. These are originally kind of expensive, all fitness things.
yeah, it's like 10 payments of $699 for the rest of your life.
Exactly. But yep, that's it.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, everyone.
Peace
No
be
idea
with
what we're
you.
going to talk about next time.
We'll think of something, I'm sure.
Yep,
All
or
right.
something else will come out.
Take care, like and subscribe. And as always, bye.